Hi, good evening. Good evening, good evening. And welcome to the Monday warm-up. Hello to my host, Mrs. Jessie Hendricks.
Yo, what's happening?
It's opposite day today.
Oh, yes. It didn't slip my mind.
It didn't slip your
It
mind.
didn't slip my mind.
It's so opposite day today, eh? That our one camera is facing towards the ceiling.
Yo.
I don't think our producer put that other cam in, so it's fine. Is this my cam that I'm looking into now? Okay, cool. But hi, good evening.
Skill.
In case you did not notice, it's obviously not evening. It's actually morning.
If you don't know, now you know.
Scientifically and factually, it's morning in South Africa, Johannesburg, South Africa, where we are live streaming from right now. But it's opposite day.
Yes, it is.
So that makes you Mrs.
And that's
Jessie
you,
Hendricks.
sir. Sir Lee.
I like that.
Oh, that's it, yeah. That's the girl non-binary.
I have to apologize in advance. I'm going to be coughing a lot like this because
Coronavirus. That's all and that's not opposite day. That's fact.
why you gotta be like this?
That's
I've
fact.
just got one question. That guy from the office. Why are you like this? Or why are you like this? But thank you so much for tuning in this morning. Yes, the title of today's show is Opposite Day.
Yeah.
It's opposite day every day because we are living in a society where the things that used to be considered the way or fact is no longer so. It's just reversed. Everything
To
is.
get song literal. The things I used to do.
I do them no more. But
They
yeah,
took the right things and they
Yo.
don't do it no more.
we don't do it no more. And that is the world that we are living in today. So we have quite a few things that we are going to be discussing.
Yes.
And I'm really excited. It's opposite day. I'm not excited about today's
I'm so angry.
show. I'm so angry and I'm not, I am feeling well physically. And I do not have a cough.
At this point in time, you're also feeling well mentally.
Exactly. Mentally, I'm doing great. But how aren't you doing today?
You know what? I'm so sad. My life is a mess. I can't take it no more.
Yeah.
I want to give up. I don't want to push no more. And I just feel like throwing in the towel.
Okay.
That's how I feel. Yeah.
You don't mean throwing in the wash rag.
Oh yeah, opposite day. Throwing in my oni.
Or what is it now? If it's opposite day, throwing in the towel.
Throwing in your oni.
For those of you who don't know what an oni is,
It's a ani.
as an onderwyseres. We used to call our onderwyseres onis.
Wow.
We did.
No, I
Gaan sê
didn't.
vir die oni.
Yo, gaan sê vir die oni. Who's that? Die tannie.
Wat se kleur is jou oni? Myne was Afrikaans.
You can see how they used to flirt with you.
Yeah. But yes, so without any further ado, I think we should get into
I think so. Eh?
Eh?
I think so. We're moving fast somewhere.
It's so opposite day. We even feel dully today. For me, it's medication. I don't know about Jesse. Why is he going on like
Standard.
this? Just standard.
Yeah, no.
This is the feature.
Yeah.
This is how you are.
This is a spare wheel. This is how it comes. It's not a cookie. Not a biscuit. It's a standard.
At this point in time, I don't even know what we're talking about
I
anymore.
don't know where we
We're
everywhere. You know what? That's a rat.
And my coffee is not helping because every time I think of something.
Oh, that's it. No.
Yo,
Say your coronavirus.
just saying, I'm not even a smoker or anything like that. But
Just a drinker.
my bors. Here I need borst ripples of
Borstel.
borstel of something.
Must get
But yeah, no. So the reason why I wanted to have this specific conversation is because, I don't know, did you see, but Uganda's no, Uganda's parliament has passed a tough new anti-LGBTQ bill.
I plus minus square.
So they call it the anti-homosexuality bill, right? So for context, homosexuality is illegal in Uganda. In fact, it is illegal in 32 out of the 56 African countries.
Sure.
So the vast majority of Africa still sees homosexuality as being illegal.
Yeah.
That's the reason why they do not legalize same-sex marriage. And so that is where they are. But now what they did is, I'm going to read this article that I found on dw.com. I will link it in the description as well. The title is Uganda's Parliament Passes Tough New Anti-LGBTQ Bill. It was published on the 21st of March. And it says here that the East African country already has some of the most draconian anti-LGBTQ legislation in the world. The new law makes offences connected to same-sex relations punishable by up to 10 years in prison. It goes on to say that the lawmakers passed a bill that will criminalize identifying as LGBTQ. So not even just committing same-sex. Yeah. Just the identification thereof, handing authorities broad powers to target a minority that already faces legal discrimination. The legislation was supported by nearly all of the 389 members of parliament who were present in the packed chamber. So apparently there was 389 members in parliament and only 2 voted against it.
Okay.
So the rest
they agree.
Was
They're
voted
like,
for
we
it. Exactly. So the bill will now go to...
And that's not opposite, that is true.
That's true. Oh no, we stopped the opposite day now. Everything that I'm going to read now is factual, what I'm getting from the sources out there. The bill will now go to President Yoweri Museveni, who can veto or sign it into law. So I just want to give context to what the bill is, because you know what social media does,
Yeah,
when they change everything. Because everybody's trying to drive a certain narrative, and you get leftists and you get conservatives, far left, far right, and they all have their own agendas.
Yes.
But I'm basically going to say what the bill entails based on what we receive from authorities there. And it says that the bill, which was introduced earlier this month in March, proposes tough new penalties against sexual minorities. So don't forget, right, that homosexuality is already illegal in Uganda. Yeah. But it's basically just toughening those laws, those existing laws. So under the legislation, anyone who engages in same-sex activity or who identifies as LGBTQ could face up to 10 years imprisonment.
Yeah.
The homosexuals, this is what they say. The homosexuals are deviations from normal. Why? Is it by nature or by nurture? And this is what the president is trying to figure out, right, before he signs this bill. Okay. Is it by nature or is it by nurture? Then it goes on to say, we need to answer these questions, says the President Museveni. Yeah. And he said this when MPs asked him to comment on the bill. The law aims to allow Uganda to fight what it perceives as, listen, threats to the traditional heterosexual family. So, opening up the discussion to you, what do you think first and foremost based on this bill? Do you think that it is practical? Do you think that it's necessary? Or do you or don't you have any thoughts at the moment on it?
No, for me, I feel like let the man do what he wants to do at a point in time. He is the president. And I know people who are not going to agree with us. We're going to get judged a lot in this podcast here today. But for me, it's like you said, it's nothing new. So many other countries have the law out there. It's literally just them adding the law into their country now as well. So because they're adding it now, it needs to be like, people, right, type of thing. No, this can't go, all that type of thing. But for me, it's like, it's not just them.
Yeah.
There's so many others out there. Why are we just putting our finger on them and pointing at them and saying, no, it's not right, you can't do this, to a point where the USA even is trying to get involved now and threatening Uganda and all this type of things. It's like, why are you crapping in my pot now? I'm the president. Let me do what I want to do. No one craps in your pot. Now all of a sudden you want to just come here. But yet when the UAE,
Yeah.
when they do their laws and stuff, no one has anything to say about it. But I feel like now that it's an African country, the US feel like they have a say. The rest, everyone else feels like they have a say now in this thing. Because in other people's eyes, Africa is seen as your poorer, weaker country. So we can step over them. We can put our traditions and our laws and our beliefs in them. Where I feel like it shouldn't be that way, because why aren't we doing that to the other countries that do have this law? So for me, I feel like if he feels like he wants to do it, then let him go ahead and do it. If everyone else agreed on the law, that means that there's no problem. They don't see any problem then with the law in the country if so many people have agreed with the law. So why are we trying to change now their beliefs and the way they want to do their things? If they want to run their country a certain way, let them do it, because we allow UAE to run their country religiously the way they do. So if he wants to run it a certain way, I don't know if it's religiously or what, but allow him to do it then.
Yes. So most of these laws are based on their religious and
Yes.
traditional beliefs, right? And you know that many of the African countries, including some of the Arab countries, they are very religious.
Yeah.
And it's
There's
not like
no
they make a secret
middle
about
ground.
it. They don't make a secret about
Yeah.
it. You know that the United Arab Emirates, Dubai, those countries, Abu Dhabi's and
Qatar,
all of those the what do they call it, the Gulf countries, right? Those countries are very strongly Islamic,
Yes.
and they go by certain principles based off of Islam. It's
Quran and
the Quran and the teachings by the Prophet Muhammad and all the other scholars of Islam, and they've built that into their constitution. You also know for a fact that even South Africa, as a matter of fact, has been built on Christian principles and values. The constitution is largely based off of many Christian principles. It's not something new. With countries like Uganda and Kenya, they've got a strong Christian and Islamic influence. So when you say, you must separate state from religion, how do you separate state from religion when the very constitution is built off of religious principles and practices?
And even if you look at the ANC, wasn't the ANC built out of a church, basically?
It was established in a church. It was built out of a church. And I mean, you mentioned something close to the end of your opening statement, where you were saying that most people voted for it.
Yeah.
And Uganda's system is based off of a democratic parliamentary system, which means democracy. Everybody has a say and majority votes and rules, right? So the majority, I mean, if out of 389 parliamentarians, MPs, were present in that sitting for this new bill, and only 2% voted against it. And I was watching something that our producer sent to me, and it's on. You can find it on YouTube. I will also link it in the description below. And it was on NTV Uganda on a segment called On the Spot.
Yeah.
And the title is there space for LGBTQ plus people in Uganda? Right? And the conversation took place between Andrew Muenda, who's a veteran journalist who's against the bill, and he challenges the bill, this bill that has been proposed. And then Medard Segona, I apologize if I'm butchering the names. I'm really, really sorry. Medard Segona. He is a lawyer and a legislator for Busiru South, right? And he's also an MP who was present, who was one of the MPs that voted for the bill. And what Mr. Segona says, he mentioned something very important. He says that we as parliamentarians, MPs, right, ministers, we take Uganda's the citizens of Uganda, we take their interest to heart, which means that we listen, because there was obviously a process. It wasn't now just, okay, these MPs come together and they decide, okay, guys, we're going to it doesn't happen like that. And I like what you said, how many a times Westerners and more modernized, and I'm putting this in air quotes, because we think that Uganda and Kenya, and when we hear about these East African countries and these Western countries and we think about Africa, is many South Africans think that the rest of the rest of Africa, we have that Western mentality that they're not modernized, they're not urbanized, they're third world countries, and that's the reason why they're not educated.
That's why they all want to come here.
Exactly, where it's completely opposite. I mean, you look at the literacy rates compared to South Africa and Uganda, and we can be put to shame, right? Even the conversation, the argument, the debate that took place, this show that I was watching on YouTube, it was so intellectually driven and motivated that they didn't just come there shouting at each other, you say your, it was so civilized. I haven't even seen that kind of debate taking place on American soil. The things that I've seen on America. And these two grown adult men have a constructive civil conversation with each other. We agree to disagree. That is the point that they've come to. And I feel like Uganda is doing much better in terms of having open discourse like that compared to South Africa and even America, because a lot of South Africans have been the outcry against this bill. It's like, how could they? This is a violation of human rights. But this guy mentioned something very important. I said to you earlier that he says that we take the interest of the population of Uganda into consideration. And more than 80% of Ugandans are against homosexuality. It's against their both their religious and constitutional beliefs. So it's not as if, yes, and we know homosexuals is a minority group, but the majority is against it. But you need to ask the question, because you have to look at it fairly from both sides. You know, can't have a biased opinion because it's something considering people's livelihoods. So he asks the question, right, which is valuable to us. And I'm going to ask you this question. So Mr. Andrew Mwenda, who's the journalist, who's against...
Andrew, I keep thinking...
No, not that one. It's not opposite day. It's Andrew Mwenda. He's the journalist. And so he asks this question, and I want to ask it to you as well. He says, is it possible for the state to legislate morality? Right? So morality being obviously what is your moral values and your moral high ground, your traditional values. Things like child abuse is against your morality. Things like adultery is against your morality. But the question, the Bible question, and it's a point of discussion that we need to have. Can a state legislate morality? Like for everyone. A state, think about it, a country, I'm going to make an example. Will the country know of every man, if it's in your constitution that adultery is wrong?
Would you know?
How would you know? How do you legislate that? Because remember, from legislation comes the execution of that
now you
legislative
have
piece.
A tactical unit watching people here through the windows. It does make it very difficult. But I think when they say that it's illegal and all that, obviously you're gonna have people doing it behind the scenes and all that type of things. I feel like for them it's more public. We don't want you. I don't know what the environment is in terms of like drama and television
through their media, basically.
That type of things. I think that's where they're trying to bring it in. We don't want to have this. Our kids seeing this type of things on. Okay, they're going to see it on TV because obviously it's westernized and all. But they're in-house things. I'm sure they have their soapies and stuff like that.
Yes, they do.
What they do. I'm sure that's where that will also come into play. Where it's like, okay, we don't want these type of things on the TV if it's made in Uganda, if it's made in our country. We don't want this type of things on our TV. Because obviously you can't have people running around watching, okay, this guy and this guy's together. Oh, they're buying a pizza together.
Yes.
They're going to go watch a movie now. They must be. It's like so obviously there's certain ways that I feel like they will bring it. It's not going to be in terms of like that, watching, oh, this one's doing this, that one's doing that. But if it's out there, if you're in the streets doing your thing, stuff like that, I feel like that's when the rest will now take place in the television. If you part of a media house in that country and you representing this and you playing it on Uganda soil and all that type of things, I feel like that's where that bill could come into play.
So interesting that you mentioned that, like media and stuff like that, and basically the exposure that people get to the idea of homosexuality. Because like you saw that they said there that I'm going to read actually something that I found, an excerpt that I found on CNN, and it says it was published on the 22nd of March 2023. The title of this article is Uganda Parliament passes bill criminalizing identifying as LGBTQ, imposes death penalty for some offenders. So people already jumped on that, like, can you see how can they kill people for identifying as gay? No. Oh, wait. Context, guys. It says imposes death penalty for some offences, and we'll find out what those offences are. So it says opposition lawmaker Asuman Basalirwa.
Barcelona.
Excuse me, I really do apologize. Introduced the Anti-Homosexuality Bill 2023 to Parliament, saying it aims to protect our church culture, the legal, religious, and traditional family values of Ugandans from the acts that are likely to promote, media promotes, indoctrinates, sexual promiscuity in this country. So clearly, the reason why they need to implement a bill is because they're seeing certain trends of sexual promiscuity that is linked to the community. I mean, you're not just going to, and this is the problem that I have with mainstream, especially leftist, westernized media, is that they try to indoctrinate us all into thinking that the rest of Africa and the world is imbeciles. They're stupid. They don't know what they are doing. They just passing laws left, right, and center. Wait. Do you know what is currently happening in Uganda? Right? Then it goes on to say that the objective of the bill was to establish a comprehensive and enhanced, listen to the words again, these are adjectives for those of you who are not familiar, right? Comprehensive and enhanced legislation to protect traditional family values, our diverse culture, our faiths, by prohibiting any form of sexual relations between persons of the same sex and the promotion or recognition of sexual relations between persons of the same sex, he says. So this guy, one of the MPs, Mr. Segona, from Uganda, right? He is I'm going to give it to you now. He is a lawyer and a legislator in Uganda for Busiro South, right? It's one of the regions. And this is what he says, what the Ugandans have been noticing. And tell me this doesn't sound familiar. He says that the reason why they have basically toughened or tightened the grip, because remember guys, we said in the beginning that homosexuality was already illegal in Uganda. It's not a new thing. But now they are taking a step further. Why the need to take a step further? Because clearly there's gaps in the system that they need to identify, because that is what Parliament is there for. If there's gaps in a system, you would expect the government to step in and to fill those gaps. So what he says here is that he speaks about that this is a priority bill. He says that it's important and urgent. That's the reason why they have passed it. Then he says that they have been noticing that videos and photos have been making the rounds, where the community, LGBTQ community, is specifically recruiting children.
Yeah, but it's nothing new that we know.
So,
Through
there
Disney
you
and all that.
now can you see, does this not sound familiar?
Yeah.
Right? The USA, does it not sound familiar? Then he goes further and he says that they've been finding material of a sexual nature specifically geared towards homosexuality in textbooks, in magazines, and on social media. So obviously there's a crisis of promiscuity that they've been noticing. Now they trace it back and they see that it's linked to these sources. So now, if this is happening, right, because there was one instance for one example that he made, and I'm sorry, this is of a graphic nature for those of you who are sensitive to this. Please either switch off, change, or whatever the case may be.
Just mute for a bit.
And it's to do with kids, right? But he says that there's videos and photos making the rounds, right? Obviously of a sexual nature, which you can be considered as child pornography, of minors being told to engage in sexual acts, sodomy, etc. And teachers are the ones recording it and telling kids what to do. Now, no. You don't even know the context of why another freaking country is making these laws. And already we're jumping on the bandwagon. And we're not looking at the bigger picture. And this is my frustration with why social media and main leftist ideology is driving us to a point of complete immorality. We have become a cesspool of immorality, and all that we do is complain about human rights. So whose human rights are we talking about? Are we talking about kids' human rights, or are we talking about consenting adults who know what to do? And please don't get me wrong, this is not all homosexuality, because I don't want us to attach pedophilia and child abuse and rape and all those things to homosexuality, because that would be doing a disservice to both us and to them and to the conversation. But look at the broader picture. Why? Why are you doing this, Uganda? Look at all those interviews, the CNN interviews, and all these Western news outlets that do interviews with the presidents of Uganda and of Kenya. Have they ever asked why?
They just try to make them fools in those interviews, and that's why I don't know if it was an old one that I watched or if it was something recent where the Uganda president also had an interview. But
It's pretty recent.
yeah,
It's pretty recent.
where he says, "Stop making Africans fools. We are not fools.
Yes.
We know what we're doing.
Yes.
Don't make us fools. We are not fools." And that's literally why I mentioned that in the beginning, because they try to make us fools every single time. Yet, when it comes now to human rights, basic human rights, everyone has a right. You can't do that. It's wrong. But where was all those human rights when we were forced to take vaccines and all these type of things?
Thank you.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
Hi, everybody.
So that is our producer, guys. Sorry, I even forgot that you are there.
Okay, so something that we were taught in primary school was that every right has a responsibility. So as soon in order to understand your right, you need to understand your responsibility. A very simple example would be you have a right to education. However, it is your responsibility to get up to go to school. It's your responsibility to do your homework and so forth.
Yes.
However, like Lee was saying about linking pedophilia and homosexuality and so forth as a disservice, there is some sort of type of responsibility on how the homosexual agenda is being pushed forward in schools, because Evangelique showed me a video where this little boy was standing in court and he was telling he got a book from school, and the context of the book was sexual and between two males. Do you understand how they use homosexuality, which is trying to push that it's okay to accept, but then again they push an agenda of pedophilia in some sort of sense. Not saying that this is what homosexuality is. However, it does create that, because the new agenda that's being pushed makes way for any type of excuse. You get heterosexual males who literally identify as females just to go into a public spa, or a public a woman's spa, or a woman's bathroom. These types of things become scary, and it's a conversation that we have. This is why the new generation does not want kids, because we cannot create a sound environment, even if it's a home, even if it's a homeschooling, because even though it's 8-10 kids in a class, which is less than 42, it's still 10 different perspectives, and you can't stop that in some degree.
Yes.
So it's scary. It's really scary. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
No, it's a good point that you raised there, because this lawyer, the journalist, Andrew Mwenda, he says, he asks the question, which is also again, he asks very valid questions.
Yeah.
And he says, then why not extend the laws? That's the reason why I asked Mickey when we were preparing for the show, please do research on, because there's a lot of instances where there's child brides in many of these many African countries and many Arab countries, where, because remember I asked you, how do you legislate morality, which is a good question to ask, because now do you have morality police, and how do you determine what is morality, because morality to you is different to morality to me, right? So now we have an instance of child bride. So now he asks Mr. Sigona this question. He says, so then why not extend or amend laws on pedophilia instead? Because now you are focusing on the homosexuals, and you're not. And I mean, if your issue is with the fact that children are being indoctrinated, which is a good question, if your issue is with children being indoctrinated, why not extend laws on pedophilia? So Mr. Segona answers him, and he says that, well, there is already stringent laws on pedophilia.
But no one's fighting that.
And nobody's exactly
Because it's like
exactly because you know for a fact that, I mean, to anybody, any sane individual, Lord, please let the world not get to the point where we start thinking that pedophilia is okay, because we're already there.
we're already there.
We are already there. And he says that, to have that argument, basically, well, he doesn't say this, but in my mind, this is what I'm thinking. For Mr. Mwenda to have this conversation, like, well, why don't you extend laws on pedophilia? It's like, but the laws are already there. We don't need to extend them because we aren't seeing that many cases, but we are seeing the indoctrination from the homosexual front.
Yeah.
Right? In these instances. And this is the things that we deal with on the ground. This is our daily lives. This is what we are seeing. And this is the reason why we felt coming together, having had constant screenings and conversations and debates and all these things, trying to find solutions. This is the solution that we've come up with.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And whether we like it or not, now and then it is linked to what you just mentioned. Everything is literally like interlinked. They all fall into place together.
There's always a paper trail. Like
There
all
is.
the cases that I've been following, right? There's always a paper
Yeah.
trail. And I'm like,
And for them, maybe they also bring this in now because they also don't want that to lead now. We see, okay, there's a decrease in the pedophilia, all that type of things. We see this is happening and we know there is a trail. If this happens, it's going to lead to this, it's going to lead to that. And eventually, it's just going to be a whole big mess. So let's stop something here now already.
Yes.
Before it gets out of hand. And then when it's too big, we can't control it now. So for me personally, I don't blame them for what they're doing. I feel like let them go ahead, let them do what they want to. And obviously not everyone's going to agree with it because that's like a community you can't mess with. You can't.
yeah, they don't touch.
Yeah,
don't touch
us.
there.
But literally, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
But it does go back to the question then on in these countries, right? For instance, like polygamy.
Yeah.
Because to some of us, polygamy is considered immoral.
Yeah.
Why do you need more than one wife or
Wife or
sex partner
husband.
or whatever
Yeah.
the case may be, right? So then why not put
So
pressure on that? And it's true. It's the question that you need to ask.
valid
Why?
questions, yeah.
So this is my question in relation to, obviously not me now trying to impose my own ideology, because I'm not that narcissistic to feel like I have all the answers
Yeah.
now to impose my ideologies onto another country. Freaking hell, I'm not even a politician, and now I want to come some commoner on the road to
But
Johannesburg,
also,
South Africa.
People must understand this is a podcast.
Yes.
We are not news outlets. Yes, we try to give you the correct information and everything, but on certain topics, we just sit
We are
and
opinionators.
talk. We opinionators. We just talk about what we feel
Yes.
and the discussion about it. That's how podcasts work, guys, because you
And-
get a lot of people that, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, then communicate with
Democracy,
us.
and that's the power. Well, what it should be the power of democracy, and then he asks the question: and why not pass a law of defilement? Pass a law against defilement and rape, irrespective of sexual orientation. And then Mr. Sigona says, but we do have those laws, and
Yeah.
it's. You see, this is my issue, ne? Like, look, Mr. Mwenda is, I take it is Ugandan.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, why did he not? How does he not know these things? Like, is he not Ugandan? Why is he asking questions like, why not pass a law of defilement and rape?
When the law is there.
When he's like, but that law is there. It's under section, ek weet nie wat die 79. They were talking about Article 79 and Article 139 or
But that's-
32 or
that's the
39
other
or
thing,
whatever.
They know this stuff.
They
They
know
tell
that,
you.
that brow was coming out of, and you know what I loved about that? Sorry, I loved that about that conversation, because obviously you know where my stance is, right? But what I loved about that conversation is Mr. Mwenda, who's obviously against the bill. He's asking Mr. Sagona all these questions, so he goes and he Googles that Article 79, and he's like, yeah, in Article 79, the marriage. No, it wasn't Article 79, it was Article something. 30 something, and it's like under marriages it says it was almost like it does say that, sorry, because the thing is, bro, and then Mr. Segona is like this very serious man, he doesn't smell, he's just I'm like, can you now see?
So.
Can you now see? And he says, he's like, I don't know where Mr. Mwenda was living. I don't know, does he live in Uganda? Because clearly there's things that that's happening here that he doesn't know about. But we know it because we worked with the people. Yeah. And that's the difference. But that's the difference.
Lee, sorry to say this on nothing now. I have a doctor's appointment that I have to rush to.
Wow.
But
wow.
I just want to leave you with this. I'm leaving you with Mickey. Don't scream. I'm just leaving you with. For me, I feel like there's an ecosystem that we have to respect, and that's why you clearly I'm sure you gathered where we stand on the whole situation, and I feel like when that ecosystem is disrupted, it's just gonna have a chain reaction of kids that are now rebellious. We already see it.
Yeah.
The kids are more rebellious than ever before. They do what they want, and that's literally the thing where there's a mother and a father in the house. You even see when it doesn't come to same-sex marriage and all
just
that. Single parents, where there's already rebellious
imbalance.
kids, imbalance within the house. Now you're creating a bigger imbalance within this household where it wasn't created, the ecosystem wasn't created this way. It's like, if you look, we can even use nature for that example. The fly is there for a reason.
Yeah.
The frog must eat the fly. This eats the frog. That eats that.
Yes.
If you cut one out, the ecosystem crumbles and everything falls, and then this one's going to end up dying. That one's going to end up dying because you took away the main thing that's supposed to be there. So I feel like the ecosystem's there for a reason. When the Bible was formed, when it was created, they knew exactly what they were talking about. God's not dumb.
Yeah, no, he's not.
He has his reasons to why he did things, and he made a female and a male being present in the same household for a reason. That's why even divorce is seen as like because it's disrupting the ecosystem.
Yes.
And there's certain situations obviously where divorce, it's like, okay, you can't really be around now for so long because you're getting hit, you're getting abused, this person's not changing. In situations like that, I feel like, okay, you can't now stick around because it can end up in you being dead and then the ecosystem is still disrupted at the end of the day. So in certain situations, we understand the system and all that type of thing. But I feel like in this now where it is a choice, and people's going to say, but then it's a choice. Then again, pedophilia is also a choice. You can have the choice to go and make children do funny things. I don't know. I feel like I'm all over the place.
No, I get you.
I don't know if you.
I get what you're trying to say.
But I feel like
it's opposite day. It's fine. It's confusing.
They're trying to protect the ecosystem, and that's why I respect him for that, because he sees certain things that's happening within the country, and he's like, okay, as a leader, I need to take order. I need to come in here and protect this ecosystem so we see a better future. We see Uganda moving forward. And it's true, you do see these things move. Even if you look at the foreign exchange, South Africa, we still think we're on this high pedestal. But there's other African countries that has passed us long ago, where their currency is much stronger than ours. South Africa used to be the strongest, but it's no longer.
Sure.
There's other countries that is passing us slowly. We're moving backwards. They're moving forward.
Yes.
They're starting to move out of their load shedding situations and stuff. Now we're going back into our load shedding and all that.
Regressing.
So for me, it's like I respect them 130,000% because they're not running with the Western ideology. They're doing what they feel is right for their country, for their people. So 100% I respect him. I'm for it. If he feels like that's what's best for the country, then let's go ahead. And
thank you
so
much, Jess.
I do apologize.
No, it's cool.
When you got a baby on the way.
You are respectfully, no, this man's about to be a father again. But you are respectfully allowed to leave.
Thank you.
Dismissed.
I'll see you later. I'm coming back after.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll record after and you edit in.
No. We only here for an hour, and I don't even know how much time I have left. But okay, let's give 10 more minutes. Is that fine, producer? Let's have this conversation. 10 more minutes. We can do it then?
You got 20.
20 minutes. Okay, girl, let's do this. You can mute Jesse's mic, though. We'll have the conversation between the two of us then. But so another thing that I wanted to mention that Jesse just basically ended off there with, well, he mentioned it in there, was on the issue of procreation. He spoke about the Bible and he spoke about, God says it, man and woman come together and they procreate. And what Mr. Mwenda, Mickey, you obviously sent me that video, so you would know what I'm talking about here. But for those of you who would like to go and see the full video, please do go and watch it. In the link is in the description below. And Mr. Mwenda, the journalist, he asks the question. He's like, okay, man, now listen. Yeah, now, okay, he didn't say it like that, but you know what I mean. He says that, when a country becomes, or when a society becomes more urban and more modern, right, and they start to explore more things and they're exposed to more things, which is happening to Ugandans. He says, so if you would like your country to move, for instance, basically from a third world country to a first world country, you must know that the purpose of sex is going to be different, right? So it's going to go from procreation, which was the purpose of sex, the traditional value, man and woman procreating, to becoming recreational, right? So he says that you need to make way for these kinds of things. You have to allow basically for it, or at least be prepared for it. So what is your stance on that, Mickey, when it comes to you from Namibia originally, and I don't know what's the situation there when it comes to homosexuality. I don't even know if is it illegal or is it legal, but what is your when it comes to the purpose of sex, and obviously younger people that becomes now more exposed to social media, TikTok and all those things, what do you think that what he said there is true?
I actually do, because if you look at any type of social media today, like what is being pushed, it's sex. It's movies, music, TikTok, clothes. Guys, I really hate to bring up that topic, but it's true. Clothing, dressing modest is a problem for people. It's an actual problem. Yeah. Because they feel like, oh, you're suppressing yourself. And there's new thing about, as women, we are often taught that sex is for the man. Whether we are Christians or whatever, it is what it is. Sometimes it's the first thing that comes up in a man's mind. I'm not saying that's the case, but this is what we are taught. So now there's this new thing of women being like, I'm such a sexual being. I am my femininity. I am in my era. I am in my this and that. Yeah. And it later became something about where purity has become something that is impure. It's abnormal. When you tell someone, oh, but I'm a virgin, I am saving myself for marriage. It's like, but you weird. You need to, what do they say? You need to test drive the car before you know if you're going to buy the car. Exactly. I'm like, that's not how this works.
Milk the cow before you buy it. What?
Yes. And I just want to read the definition of law, because I think that's very important. So, the discipline and profession concerned with the customs, practices, and rules of conduct of a community that are recognized as binding by the community. So it's a conversation you and I had this morning, Dee, where you said this law was passed based on what people were saying. It wasn't just because they felt that way. And I do think people forget that is how law works. That's how democracy works.
Yes.
Where it's not
majority votes.
Yes, it's not just I feel this way, so I'm going to pass this law. There are actual people who don't want this agenda of homosexuality anymore. They're tired of it because they see the impacts of it in their homes. Yes. In their mindsets. I think the most important thing is mindset. Yeah. So getting back to sex being recreational, guys, in the Bible, sex is a very beautiful thing. Right? It's something that is pure. It's done before God. It's beautiful. But once you make it,
you pervert it,
and you over sexualize it. You obsess over it. You just
loses its beauty and it loses its sacredness, basically.
Yeah, you lose that. And you honestly, there are people who believe that sex isn't like a thing. It's not like a thing.
It's not that big a deal.
No, it's not a big deal. It's an act. So I'm not even gonna lie to you. You get women who literally just sleep with every guy, and you get men who sleep with purely based for the enjoyment. However, I'm sorry for being graphic. There's this thing called post-nut clarity. You feel like trash after sleeping with someone if it's not someone that you are married to or in love with.
Yes.
You are doing yourself a disservice.
Mm.
And people use sex for revenge, for filling voids, peer pressure. You know, all of those types of things. Sex isn't what it's supposed to be. It's nasty. It has become nasty.
Yes. Another thing that I guess that, and this is also why I say, to each their own is almost what I'm trying to go with here when I think about other countries getting involved in this. Yes, I do believe that there should be an outcry. For instance, like I mentioned earlier, child brides. Where is the outcry against that? Because I don't hear a lot of people campaigning around that. I don't hear a lot of people in their own countries protesting child brides and stuff like that. But again, like Jessie was mentioning earlier, the community is so protected that you can't mention anything. You can't even speak about the pitfalls in the community, and then you will get cancelled. And I think that these conversations need to take place because innocent people are being affected by it, which are obviously in this case the children and even the mentally ill, because when they said there that that part where they say that there's life imprisonment and in the cases of, so they say sexual acts with minors and sexual acts with the mentally ill and those who basically cannot fend for themselves, that will be considered an offense that is liable for life in prison. And another issue that you mentioned earlier when you were speaking about feminism, right? And a lot of the feminists are obviously they allies of the community, especially with the trans community. And it's actually quite contradictory. Opposite day every day. Because feminists stand for the rights of obviously equal rights. Specifically, more importantly, for the rights of women to have equal rights with men. But now we're seeing a trend where biological men are identifying as women. And what happens is they enter women's spaces, biological women's spaces, and they dominate in those spaces. We see in the sports industry. We see even in the prisons. I mean, we've mentioned this before. Yeah. We were speaking about how a man can be an offender, a biological male, and all of a sudden he gets locked up or he is in prison already, and he feels that he no longer identifies as a biological man. He identifies as a trans woman. And because we have opened the door, and this is where this is all going to. And that's the reason why I can see why Uganda makes these laws. Obviously, again, I'm questioning it. There's still a lot of loopholes. There's still a lot of gaps. I don't know how they're going to execute it. I don't know how they are going to police it, because they say that they've given the authorities broad power over executing these laws.
You know how dangerous that is? Because this is the thing with power. Just because you have authority doesn't necessarily mean you have power over something. And because you have power doesn't mean you necessarily have authority over it. So where's the line drawn where my other rights are not being overstepped?
And that's the thing. That's a very important question to ask. What about privacy?
There will be no such thing. Because if you come into my house, I'm a lesbian, I'm sleeping with my partner, I'm going to stand there and look us both up butt naked.
And this is what he asked. He was like, now what about like hotel owners and restaurant owners and stuff? What is their obligation if they see that? Are they accomplices in this criminal act? Which is important questions. How are they going to legislate this? How are they going to police it? How are they going to execute it? Which is important. But going back to the thing on feminism and the reason why these things get so out of control, especially now with the community and even with the community themselves within the community. And I know a lot of people, a lot of homosexual LGBTQI plus people will say that, there's a lot of uncertainty happening because there's a lot of opposing views within the community itself. Because I mean, if you look at trans, right, and you look at non-binary, it's all supposed to be part of the same community, LGBTQI plus queer, non-binary, however pansexual, however you choose to identify your
like
gender
pants?
and your what. And now it's like, okay, but then if there's a myriad of genders, then why is it that when you are trans, you identify with either male or female? What about the other genders? Because you were trans something. You were trans woman or you were trans man.
I'm a
so
trans
now
cat.
it's like, but
I'm a trans computer.
but can you see the contradiction that's happening within the community itself? So with the feminism thing, and this is the reason why it's opposite day every day, because now you've got feminists defending women. The feminists stand for equal rights, especially when it comes to the upliftment of women's rights, who were a group that was previously discriminated against. Now you've got that situation. Now you get to a situation where trans women are now dominating every woman's space.
Every woman's fear. And this I watched a video of you and I like Abba and Preach.
Yeah.
So it was a video of where this woman and her child were in the spa. He comes in there, he wags his thing everywhere, and then he claims he's a woman. They made a protest attacking the woman.
Yeah.
What do you not understand? This man, this actual man, biological man, this cisgendered man, made me and my child feel uncomfortable. But you are attacking me because I brought concerns about my safety. And you're telling me that I forgot what the female version of a misogynist is. There's a female word for misogyny.
Wow.
You're calling me that, you're calling me
The
sexist.
female version of a misogynist is a feminist. Modern day feminist.
Let's go. Radical feminist.
Let's go there, because that is basically what it's become now.
I'm sorry, okay? This is very controversial. But a transgender woman will never, ever understand what it means to be
A biological
woman.
woman.
I am a natural woman, and you will see me blast that song on my wedding day. You're not going to tell me anything.
Aretha Franklin must change her song.
No, don't you Aretha Franklin.
Didn't
He
you,
change
yeah?
anything.
But now you see this, it's getting out of hand. I mean, I'm going to link this in the description as well. I was reading articles on a outlet called, is it Redux or Redux? I think it's Redux, right? And it's called Feminist News and Opinion. That is what Redux is. But some of the articles, I'm just reading headlines. I'm not even going to go into the articles, but listen to this. ESPN honors Leah Thomas, the swimmer who's actually a biological male, in the Women's History Month segment, right? In New Zealand, this is another article, women's rights campaigner mobbed, attacked by trans activists. Another article, the worst one yet. Violent male pedophile moved to Washington women's prison. Another one, USA Today's male Woman of the Year encouraged minors to limit contact with parents.
Excuse me?
Another one, woman assaulted by trans-identified male told to refer to him as female in court. Another one, in Canada, dangerous male pedophile transferred to women's prison. Another one, in Australia, Liberal Party to expel female politician for attending a pro-woman rally. Another one, Smithsonian Women's Museum to feature males who identify as women. Another one, in Italy, trans-identified male takes home 8th women's running title at Indoor Masters Championship. Another one in Ireland, extremely violent trans-identified male sentenced to women's prison after threatening to rape and murder his mother. So this is what we're sitting with at the moment. And now we must now not be upset about it. We must now just accept, and we must now change our woman. We must even change the spelling of woman.
Yes.
It can't be WOMAN. It must be WOMXN. What?
X. What does X mean? Okay, this is my problem, okay? And
Y'all know this riles me up for real. For real, it riles me up.
correct me, but I'm gonna try to put an idea. I just don't know how to put it into words. 70 years ago, women didn't have any rights It was taken away from us, right? And that's when feminism started being a thing. That's when fighting for women's rights became a thing. But now, you still see
Yo.
transgendered women that are inherently a male fight us as natural women, biological women, for our rights, our spheres that we have built so hard to create.
Our spaces. We a vulnerable group.
You're putting us back there where we were.
I mean, I was listening to 702, when was it, last week, I think. I can't even remember when it was. And some sports association was asking the question about trans athletes participating in the sports. And it's like, you know what? It would actually be a disservice to a biological woman who now changes to be a trans man to compete in a male-dominated sport
Yes.
because they will lose. But now it's different for the other side, because opposite day, if a biological male decides that he wants to now, what do you call it? Transform,
Yeah.
change into a female, so a trans woman. He'll never be fully woman. But if he decides to do that, what happens is that because of his muscle mass, because of his bone density,
yes.
because of the influx of testosterone that is natural to him already, he will forever be in a position that is
He
much
dominates that. And that is
domineering.
why transgendered athletes want to compete
in women's sports.
in women's sport or men's sport, because they understand there's a disadvantage. And you know how unethical that is within itself. And I know I'm going to get hate for this. I really know. I know that for a fact. The problem is you guys have become immoral, unethical. You guys are fighting an agenda that only benefits you. You know how unfair that is? There's a reason as to why this was created that way, and that to create equality, but now you guys are like, oh, everything should be the same. Are you guys dumb? This is the thing about equality, what I also have a problem with equality. Lee, you and I are not equal in some regard. We are both women, but you are not equal to me and I am not equal to you. You prosper in certain things, I prosper in certain things. That does not make you less of what you are. But you guys are taking away every sphere that we have a little bit of chance of succeeding in.
No, really.
I get angry.
I also get angry. This conversation really riles me up, especially when it comes to then the indoctrination of kids. Because we were watching that Jazz Jennings episode, right? And we saw how, for those of you who are not familiar, so Jazz Jennings was the first documented trans kid. And Jazz has a show on TLC called I Am Jazz, and it's been going on for I think almost since 2015. I think that the first episode aired in 2015 or 2014. I speak under correction, but so Jazz has gone for the whole thing, right? So according to Jazz's mother, Jazz identified as a girl. So Jazz is a biological boy. He identifies as a girl at the age of 2 years old. Apparently, according to his mother, he says that he had a dream when he was 2 years old that the tooth fairy came to him and he asked the tooth fairy, so when are you going to give me a vagina?
How does a 2-year-old know that? There is no way a 2-year-old has formulated, their brain has developed to the point of actually understanding what he's saying. What child from the age of 13 and under knows what a VJ is?
My bro. Well, clearly now they do because of the indoctrination that's been happening on impressionable, premature minds. So anyway, so he goes on, right? So Jazz started socially transitioning at the age of, just close your headsets there for me, please. It's echoing. So Jazz started socially, it's better now. Started socially transitioning at the age of 5, right? And the mother says that they found a preschool where Jazz now could identify as a girl, and the teacher started referring to Jazz as a girl, and Jazz was wearing dresses and all those things, blah, 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 blah. And then I think Jazz went on to hormone blockers. I speak under correction, but I will link the one of the commentary episodes down below. Started transitioning from the age of between the age of 13 and 15 years old, right? So this is hormone blockers. So testosterone, obviously, the blocked testosterone and but this is when Jazz started to now medically transition. Then I think at the age of 18, Jazz went for his first vaginal basically the surgery down there. I must get the name. Sorry about that. So that's the first time that Jazz went for his first operation down there to change his penis into a vagina. If you watch that episode on TLC, a few of the episodes actually, what has to happen now to Jazz is that because Jazz never went through the natural processes of testosterone and stuff like that, Jazz did not grow a functional or at least a big enough penis for the reconstruction, because there's now not enough tissue to use, there's not enough skin or whatever. So they had to graft tissue from stomach lining, Jazz's stomach lining, to make this fake vagina, right? And it's all documented. Now the doctors are standing around and they are operating on Jazz, and the doctors are busy arguing about whether parts must be cut off or not during the operation. Like the one doctor's like, why are you cutting that off? No, because this. Yeah, but then she'll never be able to have functional feelings or whatever. And then the one doctor who is also a transgendered woman, the one of Jazz's specialists, is busy saying that in their research they found that teenagers, generally teens who have gone through transitioning and hormone blockers and all those things, will not be able to be sexually satisfied ever in their lives. They will lose all sensation down there. They will lose majority of the sensation down there. So of course the feelings will arise. They will be aroused, but they'll never be able to get satisfaction. And I'm like, but yous aren't. This is not what's covered in mainstream media. It's just this is all right and blah, 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 blah. Then the mother says, and this is my thing, how are we not criminalizing parents like this? Because for me, this is child abuse. For me, this is child indoctrination. The mother, who initially wanted a girl, by the way.
Yeah.
Right?
It plays a very important role.
So when you go through, sorry, this is really going to get graphic now, but when you've done the surgery down there, especially with a vagina, right, you have to dilate it. So you have to stick a dilator up there. You have to lube it and stick it up there, basically. So now an 18-year-old, right, is busy dilating. But Jazz now suffers from obesity and eating disorders and mental illnesses, and Jazz is anxious and depressed and all these things, right, which is now apparently just add-ons to her confusion. And the mother says on one of the episodes, is speaking to one of her friends at the restaurant, and the mother's like, I forced Jazz to dilate. One day Jazz was sleeping and Jazz didn't want to dilate, and I woke her up and I said that I will stick this dilator up you myself if I have to.
If you, this is an episode you and I watch where the mother, where Jazz is like, I don't feel myself.
Ever.
And there's a point where Jazz is also like, I'm attracted to a woman. A 2-year-old. This is the thing what I don't understand. How can you give a child full right about their body at the age of 5 or 11 to start these processes? They don't know who they are. They're not fully developed. Because what happens to statutory rape? Exactly. That also becomes null and void.
Exactly.
What happens to why are you telling 16-year-olds to enlist in the army, but they're not allowed to drink and so forth? They can't participate in certain activities because of their age. But you can make a grown decision like that at 11. But yet you push the narrative, 18-year-olds are not supposed to study because it's big life decisions, it will affect them. How does that make sense?
But you see, this is the reason why I'm so adamant in understanding what Uganda is trying to push here, because you mentioned something so interesting that many people might overlook, but I just want to reiterate it. Why are you trying to sexualize kids at such a young age?
Yeah.
You're trying to sexualize kids at such a young age because they're trying to change the psychological makeup of children so that pedophilia becomes becomes acceptable and legal because, but these kids are already sexualized. What's the problem? Because now there's already thing as trans ageism.
What
Right?
is there?
Where you can identify as a 4-year-old, as a 40-year-old man. So that, now you see, if you don't see the evil that is, the vice, the vicious cycle that is behind this movement, dan weet ekie. Then I step back, I
Y'all
wash
are
my
too woke
hands.
that y'all are actually asleep. That's
I
the
wash my
problem.
hands and I step back because now you are indoctrinating kids. You're saying no, but kids should know about their bodies and
They
body
shouldn't.
autonomy and blah
They
blah blah blah
shouldn't.
blah and what is vaginas and what is penises and what is penetration. This is what is busy
I
being
understand,
taught
and
to
it's
us,
not-
right?
they
so
shouldn't
now
know.
your brain is not even fully physically. The
Develop.
frontal lobe is not even you can look at it physically. A child's brain compared to an adult's brain, physiologically it's different. Because certain pathways have not yet been created. I mean, how guys, why? How are we arguing this still? Like, I mean, it should be common sense.
No.
En met daai sal ons maar die show toemaak.
Toemaak.
We will not continue with this conversation because it is obviously not going anywhere. It's something that's going to continue and go on and on and on. But what I want to say to people out there, and the reason why we have these conversations is because, remember I mentioned this on the previous show as well, is that culture is upstream from politics. Once it becomes acceptable socially and culturally, Lord knows it's going to be acceptable legislatively. And that's the reason why you look at WPATH, right, which is, I wrote it down here. But we don't have time to get into that. But WPATH is the... It's as iwer ek sal julle nou sê. WPATH is the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, and they've come out with their standards of care, the amendment to their standards of care for the health of transsexual, transgender, and gender non-conforming people. And I read through this thing. It's 120 pages, right? I will also link it in the description if you have time to go and read it. But basically, some of the things that they say here, it's so contradictory. And for me, I see it again. We're going down a rabbit hole, right? And something that stands out for me is when they were saying that one of the doctors, right, that is part of the WPATH, one of the contributors to the standards of care, his name is Dr. Thomas W. Johnson, and he's allegedly a leading member of something called the Eunuch, ne? Yeah, Eunuch Archive since 2001, and he goes by the name of Jesus in the society. So, the Eunuch Archive is basically, the eunuch is also now apparently a new gender identity. And basically, it's sexual gratification out of people who have cut off their parts. And this man who is contributing towards standards of care for health of sexual, transgender, and gender non-conforming people, including children, this man is a member of the Eunuch Archive. This man is a predator, if you ask me. And these are the people that we are glorifying and that we are allowing to legislate things and to put things into law. I'm sorry, but on the stance of Uganda, if this is where the world is going to, then I'd rather take a stance like Uganda. That is my closing remarks. If this is where we are going to, that's the reason why I say, like, in terms of America and even South Africans that are opposing this, we've got GBV and femicide that is on a high. If we can't even fix those kinds of things, who are we to get involved in another country's politics when it comes to morality? Who are we? Who is America to get involved when majority of their children are being indoctrinated and sexual slaves? Who are they? Fix. My grandmother used to say in Afrikaans, "Vee eers voor jou eie deur." Which means first sweep in front of your own door before you go and sweep in front of another. And the Bible mentions it like this. Take this before you take the speck out of your neighbor's eye, take the log out of yours. And with that, I end the show. Mickey, thank you so much for your contribution. To everybody who is watching, to my co-host Jess, everybody who got involved in the live chat and even now in the comments. Thank you so much. Appreciate you so much. Until next time, bye.